"We're finally shutting down your embarrassing little business," my brother Vincent announced to the bankruptcy courtroom, straightening his tie with the smug satisfaction of a man who believed he had already won. My parents nodded approvingly from the gallery, Mom dabbing at fake tears while Dad's jaw remained set in righteous judgment. I stood at the defendant's table silently, letting their lawyer present the fraudulent petition, waiting for the moment that would destroy everything they thought they knew. But why did Judge Margaret Holloway suddenly freeze mid-sentence, her pen suspended over the documents, her eyes widening as she read the company name on the filing? "Counsel, approach the bench." Immediately, both lawyers moved forward. The judge's voice dropped to a harsh whisper I could barely hear. "Is this the same Apex Defense Systems that just secured the $189 million Department of Defense contract? The one featured in the Wall Street Journal last week?" Vincent's lawyer stammered something I couldn't make out. Judge Holloway looked up, her eyes meeting mine with an expression of disbelief mixed with growing anger. "I'm going to need to see extensive documentation before we proceed, because either this petition is the most incompetent filing I've seen in 30 years on the bench, or someone is attempting to commit fraud in my courtroom." My brother's confident smile began to crack. "I founded Apex Defense Systems 8 years ago in a garage with $3,000 in savings. The Moretti family didn't do garages. We did prestige. My father, Antonio Moretti, ran a successful luxury car dealership chain. My brother Vincent was being groomed to take over. My younger sister Carla had married into old money and spent her days on charity boards and country club committees. And I, Gabriella, the middle child, the disappointment, had thrown away a business degree from Wharton to pursue what my father called playing with electronics and cybersecurity. He had scoffed when I told him my plans. That's a job, not a business. Get a real career, Gabriella. Work for a bank. Meet someone appropriate. Defense technology has massive growth potential. You're 24 years old. You don't know anything about building companies. You'll fail, and then you'll come back expecting us to clean up your mess. I won't fail. They all say that. You will." I'd left his office and never asked for his approval again. The first 5 years were brutal. I lived on ramen and coffee, worked 20-hour days, and learned every aspect of the defense contracting world through painful trial and error. I made mistakes that nearly destroyed me. Bad partnerships, missed deadlines, a contract dispute that ate through my minimal savings. My family watched from a distance, waiting for the collapse they predicted. "Still playing with computers?" Vincent would ask at holidays, his tone dripping with condescension. "Still working on your little hobby?" Dad would add. "We worry about you," Mom would say, which was code for "we're embarrassed by you." I stopped attending holidays after year 3. The energy I spent defending myself was better used building my company. And build it I did. Apex Defense Systems developed specialized cybersecurity protocols for military communication technology that could detect and neutralize intrusion attempts in milliseconds. We won our first government contract in year 4, our second in year 5. By year 7, we had 47 employees, $12 million in annual revenue, and a reputation as one of the most innovative defense tech startups in the country. The $189 million contract came through 6 weeks ago, a multi-year agreement with the Department of Defense to implement our technology across 3 military branches, the deal that would transform Apex from a successful startup into a major defense contractor. The Wall Street Journal ran a feature. Defense industry publications profiled our technology. Investors were suddenly very interested in speaking with me. My family had no idea. I'd kept my success deliberately quiet, using my married name, Gabriela Santos, for all public appearances. The few relatives who had stumbled across news about Apex Defense did not connect G. Santos, CEO, with the daughter they dismissed as a failure. I preferred it that way. Their approval wasn't something I needed anymore. But apparently their interference was something I still had to deal with. The bankruptcy petition arrived 3 weeks after the contract announcement. It was filed by Vincent, claiming that Apex Defense Systems owed him $2 million from an investment he supposedly made in year 2. The petition alleged that I defaulted on repayment terms, that the company was insolvent, and that creditors needed court protection to recover what they were owed. Every word was a lie.
Vincent had never invested a single dollar in Apex. He'd never even expressed interest in the company beyond mockery. The documentation accompanying the petition was fabricated. Contracts I had never signed, loan agreements I had never seen, financial statements that bore no resemblance to reality. It was fraud, pure and simple. The kind of fraud that could destroy a company if left unchallenged, tying up assets in court proceedings, scaring off investors, jeopardizing government contracts that required financial stability. I called my lawyer immediately. "They're trying to force you into bankruptcy proceedings with forged documents," she said, after reviewing the filing. "It's incredibly stupid. Any forensic examination will expose the fraud within hours. But in the meantime, the filing creates legal complications that could delay your DoD contract implementation." That's the point. Vincent knows I have something big happening. He wants to sabotage it. How would he know that? My mother's cousin works at a law firm that handles some of our compliance filings. She must have seen something and mentioned it at a family gathering. I sighed. They don't know the scale of what I've built. They just know I have a government contract and decided to interfere. Why would they want to destroy your success? Because my success proves they were wrong about me. Some people can't tolerate that. The court date was scheduled for a Thursday morning.
I arrived early, dressed in the kind of understated professional attire I favored, expensive but not flashy, commanding without being ostentatious. My lawyer, Patricia Akuno, joined me at the defendant's table with 3 boxes of documentation proving Apex's actual financial status. Vincent arrived with our parents, staging an entrance designed for maximum impact. He wore a tailored suit I recognized from his promotional photos at the dealership. Mom had dressed in somber colors, as if attending a funeral. Dad carried himself with the righteous anger of a patriarch whose family honor had been offended. They didn't acknowledge me. Not a glance, not a nod. I was the problem to be solved, not a family member to be greeted. Finally, facing consequences, Vincent said to his lawyer, loud enough for me to hear, "Should have happened years ago." The gallery had a few spectators, court regulars, a journalist covering bankruptcy proceedings, some people waiting for later cases. None of them knew they were about to witness a spectacular implosion. Judge Holloway entered. I'd researched her 30 years on the bench, reputation for thoroughness, and zero tolerance for judicial misconduct. If there was anyone who would see through Vincent's fraud immediately, it was her. The proceedings began with Vincent's lawyer presenting the petition. He outlined the alleged debt, the supposed default, the need for court intervention to protect creditors. "Your Honor, the defendant has systematically avoided repayment of the substantial family loan, choosing instead to fund an unprofitable venture that has never demonstrated financial viability." Judge Holloway held up her hand. "The company name? Apex Defense Systems, based in Alexandria, Virginia?" "Yes, Your Honor." She pulled up something on her computer, typed briefly, and then went very still. That's when she called the lawyers to the bench. The whispered conference lasted several minutes. I watched Vincent's confidence erode in real time. His lawyer's face had gone pale. My father leaned forward, trying to hear, his expression shifting from smug to concerned. Finally, Judge Holloway spoke, loud enough for everyone. "We're going to recess for 30 minutes. During that time, I want both parties to prepare comprehensive documentation of their positions. Counsel for the petitioner," she fixed Vincent's lawyer with a stare that could freeze nitrogen, "I strongly suggest you verify every document you've submitted, because if I discover fraudulent filings in my courtroom, the consequences will be severe." The gavel came down. Vincent practically ran to his lawyer's side. "What's happening? What did she say?" I used the recess to arrange my documentation. Patricia spread the evidence across our table. Actual financial statements showing $12 million in revenue and healthy cash reserves. The DoD contract, redacted for security, but clearly authentic. Letters from investors confirming interest, tax returns, audit reports, 8 years of legitimate business records, and then the forensic analysis of Vincent's petition. Document experts had examined his loan agreements and found they had been created 6 days ago.
The digital metadata exposed the fraud immediately. The signatures were clumsy forgeries. The financial figures were fantasy. 30 minutes later, Judge Holloway returned. "I've done some preliminary research during the recess," she announced. "Apex Defense Systems is not a failing company. It appears to be a highly successful defense contractor that just secured one of the largest cybersecurity contracts in the current fiscal year." She looked at Vincent's lawyer. "Would you like to explain why you filed a bankruptcy petition against a company with no apparent financial distress?" The lawyer shuffled papers nervously. "Your Honor, my client provided documentation of a debt. Documentation that, even on a cursory examination, appears inconsistent with the company's public filings and press coverage." Judge Holloway turned to me. "Ms. Santos, or should I say Miss Moretti, since the petitioner seems to be your brother, would you like to respond to these allegations?" I stood. "Your Honor, there is no debt. There was no investment. Every document submitted by the petitioner is fraudulent. My brother has never been involved with Apex Defense Systems in any capacity. He's filing this petition to sabotage my company because my success embarrasses him." That's a serious accusation. "I have serious evidence." I nodded to Patricia, who began distributing copies of our documentation. "These are our actual financial records, prepared by our certified accountants and verified by annual audits. This is the forensic analysis of the documents submitted by the petitioner, showing they were created less than a week ago using templates inconsistent with standard business agreements. And this is the timeline of my brother's public statements about my company over the past 8 years, demonstrating a consistent pattern of dismissal and hostility." Vincent shot to his feet. "This is ridiculous. She's my sister. I have every right to collect debts she owes." "What debts?" I asked calmly. "Name the date of the supposed loan. Name the bank account from which funds were transferred. Provide a single piece of evidence that doesn't evaporate under scrutiny." He couldn't, because there was no evidence. There was only greed and spite, dressed up in legal filings. Judge Holloway examined the documentation for 20 minutes. The courtroom was silent. Vincent's lawyer looked like he wanted to disappear. My parents had stopped their theatrical performances, replaced with the dawning realization that this wasn't going according to plan. Finally, Judge Holloway spoke. "I've reviewed the materials presented by both parties. The forensic analysis is compelling. The metadata clearly shows the petitioner's documentation was created recently, not years ago as claimed. The financial records submitted by the defendant show a company with substantial assets and no outstanding debt to the petitioner." She turned to Vincent. "Mr. Moretti, I'm dismissing this petition, but that's not the end of your involvement with this court. Filing a fraudulent bankruptcy petition is a federal crime. I'm referring this matter to the U.S. Attorney's Office for investigation of potential perjury and fraud." Vincent's face went white. "Your Honor, there's been a misunderstanding." "There's no misunderstanding. You submitted forged documents to this court. You claimed debts that don't exist.
You attempted to force a successful company into bankruptcy proceedings through fraud." She removed her glasses. "Did you know that interfering with a Department of Defense contractor can trigger additional federal charges? The government takes a very dim view of people who jeopardize national security assets." "National security? It's just my sister's little tech company." "Your sister's little tech company provides critical cybersecurity infrastructure to the United States military. Sabotaging it isn't just fraud. It's potentially an issue of national security." She turned to me. "Ms. Santos, I apologize for the court's time being wasted by this frivolous filing. Your company's reputation should not be affected by this proceeding, and I'll ensure the record reflects the fraudulent nature of the petition. Thank you, Your Honor." Case dismissed. The aftermath was chaos. Court officers approached Vincent and his lawyer regarding the criminal referral. My parents tried to slip out quietly, but I caught my father's eye as he reached the door. His expression was unreadable. Perhaps shame, perhaps anger, perhaps just the inability to process how thoroughly his plan had failed. "Mr. and Mrs. Moretti," I kept my voice even, "I assume you knew about this." Dad turned.
Gabriella, this was Vincent's idea. You were in the gallery nodding along while he tried to destroy my company. Don't pretend you weren't part of it. We thought we were helping. Helping whom? Your son commit federal crimes? Or yourselves feel better about betting against me for 8 years? Mom stepped forward. We didn't know it would go this far. We thought the company was actually struggling. Vincent said what he wanted to believe, and you believed him because that's easier than admitting you were wrong about me. I gathered my files. The $89 million contract? That's real. The 47 employees who depend on Apex? They're real too. The technology we've developed that protects American soldiers? That's real too. You tried to destroy all of it because my success made you uncomfortable. Gabriella, I'm done. Whatever happens to Vincent legally is his own problem. Whatever you tell yourselves to sleep at night is yours. But don't contact me again. Don't pretend you're my family. Family doesn't try to bankrupt each other with forged documents. I walked out of the courthouse and didn't look back. The federal investigation moved quickly. Vincent's lawyer, facing his own potential disbarment, cooperated fully. He revealed that Vincent had approached him with the scheme, claiming Apex was a failing company that needed to be put out of its misery before it could embarrass the family further. The lawyer had been negligent, trusting his client's assertions without verification. But the primary fraud was Vincent's. Charges were filed within 6 weeks. Bankruptcy fraud, perjury, attempted interference with a government contractor. Vincent faced up to 15 years in federal prison. My father used his connections and a substantial amount of money to secure a plea deal that reduced the sentence to 3 years. Vincent would serve time in a minimum security facility, lose his position at the family business, and carry a felony conviction for the rest of his life. The dealership chain survived, but Dad had to step back from daily operations. The reputational damage of having a son convicted of federal fraud made him toxic to the high-end clients they depended on. Last I heard, he was consulting while younger managers ran the actual business. Mom sent a letter 6 months after the trial. It was full of justifications and non-apologies. We never meant for things to go this far. Families should forgive each other. Surely you could understand our perspective. I didn't respond. Apex Defense Systems celebrated its 10th anniversary last month. We've grown to 156 employees. Our contracts with the Department of Defense have expanded to $340 million over the next 5 years. We've opened a second facility in Colorado and are planning a third in Texas. The Wall Street Journal ran a follow-up piece titled "The Defense Startup That Survived a Family Sabotage Attempt." I gave one interview about the bankruptcy case, carefully worded, focusing on the legal lessons rather than family drama. The journalist asked why I thought my brother had done it. Some people can't tolerate being wrong, I said. They'd rather destroy something successful than admit they misjudged it. Do you have any relationship with your family now? I have an excellent relationship with the family I've built. My employees, my partners, my husband, the people who believed in me when I had nothing but a garage and an idea. And your biological family? They made their choice. I've made mine. The interview ended there. Some questions don't need more answer than that. Last week, I received a letter from my sister Carla. She had always been peripheral to the family drama, too focused on her own social climbing to pay attention to mine. But apparently, the scandal had affected her standing in her precious country club circles. People whispered about her brother, the felon, her parents, the enablers. "I know you probably don't want to hear from any of us," she wrote, "but I wanted you to know that I never agreed with how they treated you. I was too cowardly to say anything, but I always thought you'd prove them wrong." It was a half apology, weighted with self-interest. She wanted to distance herself from the family catastrophe, to position herself as the sister who'd secretly supported me all along. I wrote back a single sentence. Support given in silence when it would have mattered is just complicity. But thank you for the letter. I meant it. I didn't forgive her, but I acknowledged the gesture. Growth has to start somewhere. My daughter was born 3 months ago. Her name is Elena, after my grandmother, the only Moretti who ever believed in me, who died before Apex became what it is, but told me on her deathbed that she knew I'd succeed. I hold Elena in the nursery I built in my home, a home I purchased with money I earned in a neighborhood I chose, far from the family that tried to destroy me. I tell her stories about resilience and determination, about building things that matter, about the difference between people who lift you up and people who try to tear you down. Your grandmother and grandfather, my parents, they won't be part of your life, I told her last night, even though she's too young to understand. That's not punishment, it's protection. You deserve to be surrounded by people who see your potential, not people who need you to fail. She blinked at me with those newborn eyes that don't quite focus yet. You're going to do amazing things, Elena, and when you do, I'm going to be your biggest champion. That's what family means, not shared blood, shared belief. I put her in her crib and watched her sleep, this tiny person who would never know the family that rejected her mother. She'd know the family that chose her mother instead. That's enough. That's more than enough. They forced me into bankruptcy court expecting to finally prove I was the failure they'd always claimed. Instead, they proved themselves frauds, literally and figuratively. The judge recognized my company's name because we'd built something worth recognizing, worth protecting, worth celebrating. They thought they were shutting down an embarrassment. They were trying to destroy an $89 million success story. The courtroom wasn't their victory lap, it was their exposure. And now, while Vincent serves his sentence and my parents fade into irrelevance, Apex Defense Systems keeps growing, keeps building, keep proving that the only thing more powerful than family doubt is personal determination.